Is Monday, August 24th. It is 6:30, and the first item on the agenda is the Health and Safety Working Plan of the district. So I will turn it over to Interim Superintendent Renee K. Stevenson
Thank you.
for a presentation. And then just so you know, after Renee gives the presentation, she just wants to open it up for the board to have a general discussion about the plan.
So I'm going to click on the link. I haven't driven in board book for a little bit. So, yep, full screen. There we go. Well, good evening, Chair Polly, members of the board, all of our guests this evening. This evening I wanted to take some time for us to look at the health and safety roadmap. About a month ago, I think it was August 10th, it was not quite a month ago, August 10th, we looked at our academic roadmap and really thought about how school would reopen this fall. And so tonight I wanted to give some grounding information, just some reminders on how the health and safety components fit into that reopening plan, and give you some time to ask some questions and provide some input and feedback before we were to finalize this plan. So you might remember we have quite a diverse team that has been involved really in all of our fall planning. And that's super helpful to us. We have district level leadership that is a part of that team. It includes directors, principals, district health staff, site level leadership. We often ask for feedback from our union partners in the buildings, as well as expanded feedback. We were able to get some survey data in relation to the health and safety priorities of our community. Our Health and Safety Committee, which met again, I think, on Friday. And then, of course, you as a school board are an important part of that feedback loop. So just as a reminder, we have an executive order in place that really outlines what we need to do for our fall reopening of schools. And they call it the Safe Learning Plan. The last time we met, we talked a little bit about the framework using that county level data, and I'll review that again tonight. Tonight, the bulk of our conversation will be about our ability to implement those mitigation best practices, and that's where the health and safety roadmap comes into play. So again, just a quick overview of the Safe Learning Plan process. So it really starts off with the MDH learning model selection parameters, and those were released to us back, I think, on the 30th of September, and it really said each school district needs to utilize the county level data. They also put into place a structure where we consult with county level officials. Jordan Public Schools meets every Friday with Scott County Public Health and other superintendents in the area. And I'll tell you in a little bit about my meeting today with our regional support team as well, so that we are able to implement the best possible plan for students based on the science. Number 3 is an important part of our conversation tonight because it's where you evaluate the ability to implement those required and recommended health best practices. And so as you can imagine, that's a big responsibility and a big part of our work. And that's why we took some additional time beyond releasing the academic plan August 10th so that we could be very prepared for our students and staff coming back. That 4th step is determining the learning model for the school year, which we have adopted a base learning model, which is the hybrid model, which is aligned to our data. And then number 5 is ongoing. We're monitoring and evaluating that data on an ongoing basis and having consultations with Scott County and our regional support team. Again, just a reminder, we use Scott County data, and what they like us to do and what they have us do is look at the cases per 10,000 residents at the county level over a 14-day period. Superintendents, as I mentioned, we have a weekly meeting, but also the commissioner has weekly calls with us at this time to provide us more clarity because, as you can imagine, when they put out guidance and information, there are a lot of questions as to how that fits for each district, as well as those weekly public health meetings. And today I had my first regional support meeting. That was at 2 o'clock today. Jordan Public Schools is lumped into a cluster called the Metro Cluster. There were many districts on there. The call had over 250 participants on it. And I would say that there were a few things that were new that I learned. One, they identified who our regional contact would be and gave us that name and contact information. They did talk to us a little bit about our COVID director, and what they've asked is that every district has a superintendent that appoints somebody to be their COVID contact. Ours is Chad Williams, and it makes sense because Chad is an expert in compliance, and a lot of this equates to compliance, and he supervises the district health staff, so it was a good fit for us. Plus, for the state, they really just want to have one point of contact that they can reach out to as well. The other thing I learned about the regional support team is that they are a support for us should we run into a situation that we're unsure of how to move forward with, if we have some exposures we're concerned about, if we have any illnesses that are reported. So those are important pieces, so they'll be that contact for us. Again, looking at Scott County's most recent data, we are at about 24.83. I know an ongoing conversation for us has been that zip code data, where we fall within that. Scott County Public Health, while they share that number with us and while it's significantly lower than this, they do caution that even one additional case within that zip code can skyrocket that data. So they ask us to consider that as an additional piece of information, but we really do rely on the Scott County data. And as you can see, we're comfortably within that hybrid model. However, should we proceed up into the 30s, then we would be having conversations with our regional support team. That includes public health and the Department of Education. And we would look at a new model for the high school level. One of the ongoing conversations, I know I've mentioned it in some superintendent's updates and things like that, is should our numbers climb into the 40s, we may want to look at another consideration, one of our other options for our elementary model as well. Those are always possibilities that we have. So a question that I do routinely get, and you probably get as well, is can the base learning model change throughout the year? The answer is absolutely yes. We really will be monitoring that data and looking at that number. I know Scott County is really pouring through case by case. One of the things that they have shared as well is that there have been challenges with some of the data points. I know, 2-3 weeks ago, a facility in New Hope was lumped into the data, and so it's really helpful that Scott County is looking at it case by case to make sure that the number we get is a clean number and an accurate number. So we have great gratitude for that. Also, the data that we get often is about 2 weeks behind, and the reason for that is because a lot of tests have been given, but they don't have the results yet. And so it takes a little bit to get all of those results factored in to get us the exact right number. And as I shared previously, those base learning plans could change at the district level, it could change at the building level. It really is circumstantial. It depends on what the situation might be for that. And so here's where our conversation centers tonight. When you think about those mitigation practices, those best practices, these are the things that our health and safety roadmap will help address significantly, many of these things. So when you think about the requirements for hybrid and you think about the requirements for in-person or hybrid, there is a whole list of things that need to be in place. For us, we're in the hybrid model, and so we have to make sure we're really good at 6 feet social distancing. And so that's with our staff, that's with our students, and in all of our practices. Additionally, that 50% capacity in the classroom level has been really important to us as well. And I know Tim Bezek and the principals have walked through every space within the buildings. We're utilizing unique spaces within the building so that we can accomplish that. And then also making sure that we know our capacity per room. Transportation as well is at the 50% capacity, and as I shared in a previous presentation, this is significantly better than the original guidance that we received where we might have had 7 students on a bus up to 14. That was a big challenge, and that really would have been prohibitive. of many districts having any school transportation provided. And then sufficient staffing levels to meet the requirements of the model. So we're very fortunate here in Jordan. We do have sufficient staffing levels. I know many districts across the state have changed their model because they don't have enough teachers to be in school with students, so they've had to switch that model. Additionally, the requirements for in-person and hybrid, there's a whole list. I'll point out a few of these. Masking policy, and so we'll talk a little bit about masking in a little bit. The commissioner gave clarification in a recent phone call because we wanted to know, does it have to be adopted policy? Is it procedures? And they said they call it policy, but many districts are implementing procedures, and that was absolutely fine. They just wanted to make sure districts have a plan. And so that was helpful. PPE for our direct support services, we want to make sure they have everything that they need. I think about our nurses in the nurse's office their primary job often is to work with ill students. So we want to make sure they have exactly what they need. Those hygiene practices are really important, as well as limiting non-essential visitors. I know that's really hard because we're very supported in Jordan and people want to support our students and volunteer, but we will have to be very limited with those things. Oh, and then the last thing, monitoring and excluding for illness is a really important part that I'll touch on later too. And again, what else is important to consider? Our schools may choose to implement strategies that are more restrictive, but again, we couldn't do anything less restrictive without having permission from the Department of Education through those regional support plans. Again, regardless of that learning model, we provide equitable distance learning to families through our Jordan Virtual Academy. And if there was any challenge that we had or disagreement, the commissioner has the final say on what structures we put in place. And so again, I always like to ground our conversation with what are our values. And recently we shared the academic components with all of you. Tonight we're going to talk about wellness and operations more specifically through our health and safety roadmap. So our purpose of pulling together that resource is for this to be a helpful resource for our staff, for our families. It's a nice guide for all of us to be on the same page. And it also is inclusive of best practices for health and safety. This support document, we've been very fortunate to have a lot of input and feedback from stakeholders. Our district health nurses have provided a ton of content for this. Special programs department has been great. Buildings and grounds, Tim Bezek has provided a lot of information for us and worked with his department. Our health and safety committee has been really great at having those conversations and helping to move forward some of those decisions within that. And then our principals as well, they've been meeting ongoing with their teachers really throughout the summer. And kudos to all of those teachers who weren't working in the summer but chose to participate with that. We really appreciate it. Because as those questions would come up, they would come forward to that group that's working on the document, and we could make sure that we addressed some components. And then our teacher building representatives have been great as well. And so this document is a good balance of recommendations and requirements. And so I've noted some of the components. So MSBA has provided some guidance for all Minnesota districts that we've been able to embed some components within, as well as the entire procedures document. The Minnesota Department of Health, they give us the mitigation strategies that are best practice, so we're able to embed those along with that alignment to what we need to do for school reopening. The Minnesota Department of Education as well, the executive orders clearly define many components that we need to have in place, as well as alignment to the guidance documents we get from them. And then continuous monitoring and updates. This document really will never be complete. We will release it, but we will be adding to it, we'll be updating it, because we get new guidance on things almost every day. And so it's really important that we're on top of these components and keep this a living, breathing resource. And so as I've shared with you, you all have received a copy of the health and safety document. I think we linked it out on Friday in the update for your consideration. I will outline some of the components that are involved. So the development, just as I've shared, how the document came to be, the screenings, what screenings we want our families and students and our teaching staff to do on a daily basis to make sure that everybody coming to school is healthy. The reporting methods, what will that look like? And honestly, we heard today that there is new guidance coming on all of the reporting that we should have on September 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th. So I think they said more information is forthcoming, so that's good. How do you handle suspected or confirmed cases? We will be receiving guidance on that as well to update this document. We've listed, what would it look like for staff and for students if we did, have a school closing. All of the staff leave accommodations are noted. Student and staff expectations when they're on site are noted within the document. Facilities, as I mentioned, Tim and team have done a great job of really looking at all of the spaces in our facilities and noting, how we will be cleaning those facilities. Space considerations, scheduling, training and education. What training will our staff have and what will be available for families as well? We've linked in lots of resources. And then our cleaning methods and, how we would clean if we had a confirmed case. So again, it will be updated all the time, but this is what we have right now. And here's just an example with some of the response protocols. So if a student feels sick at home, here's what you do. If the student feels sick at school, here's what we'll do. If a student had close contact with someone that had COVID-19 at home, here's what we do, and at school. And so this is the part I was saying the nurses and Kat, super impressive that they've pulled this together. And of course, should we get any updated guidance, we would update all of these as well. But this is an example of what's linked in for families and staff. And then as I referenced, the family and screening tool, it's available on your smartphone or website. It's really a handy thing. I mean, we truly want every staff member and every family to do a symptom check. We really don't want anybody that even might feel a little sick to come to school for any reason. So this is an important component to that, and I appreciate those that put it together. And so our next steps in the work session, I wanted to give you an opportunity for any input, feedback, anything you thought might be needing some clarity, any questions that you had. And if I don't have the answer to that, I will find that and I will get that back to you this week.
Okay.
Yep.
So now I'll open it up to the board to have a discussion about the document, and I'll just open it up.
What was the tool that you just referenced on that last page?
So it is a checklist tool.
So
And
is it an app?
it can be. You can download it. All the information's in the health and safety document. And
Okay,
it'll be on our website too.
okay.
And it really does the basics. Like, do you have a sore throat? Is your nose runny?
I have to
Do
do
you have a
one for
headache?
work, and it's an actual Protect Well app, so I was wondering if
sure.
it's the same type of,
I don't believe so.
Is
I
it-
believe this is more just like a checklist.
okay.
Lauren, that's what I was wondering too, because we just dropped my son off at SMSU last week, and that's what they have to do every single day is they have to go on. They have to answer all the questions, and then they get a code that clears them to enter the building. So that's what I was wondering too. Thanks for asking.
Comments?
I have a question. How does Southwest Metro fall into this?
So Southwest Metro, they are a part of all of our Friday calls. And so it's actually a pretty robust group, and we work with a lady named Lisa Brodsky. And so we're interacting on a weekly basis, but I guess I could actually say probably a daily basis, because with that group, we are always sharing ideas and questions and documents we've developed. So there's a lot of continuity.
So we talked at length about this at our Southwest Metro Board meeting last week. The challenges that each of the districts, I remember districts 11 or
Yes.
13. I
Yeah,
can't
Darren
remember.
is having to he's
He's dealing, I mean, every school is got a different model, so they are scrambling to try to put together, you know, like their CTE
Yeah.
classes and their SPED classes
Yeah.
and stuff. SPED is a little easier because those students are pretty
Yes.
much theirs. I mean, they're ours, but they're there.
Yeah.
So they have a plan, and Jeff probably knows more about this. I know they have a plan for our CTE kids, and it'll fluctuate with districts. And they may not go every day.
Yeah, from my understanding is they've worked with each of the districts, and nearly everybody is in some type of hybrid. So for us, we will send our A through K kids on Monday, Wednesday, and our L through Z kids on Tuesday, Thursday.
Okay.
And then if the teacher feels that they need, the instructor at Southwest Metro feels that they need our student there on a Friday, then they will request that of that student and communicate that out.
Right.
So that's the plan.
And they don't have the same document we do, but they have a very, very robust health and safety plan.
Yeah,
so.
I apologize. What I should have said is that, and Darren Kermis and I have emailed back and forth 3 times today, but they've been able to take really from all of the districts and look at what makes the most sense. They've developed their own components with it, but I will say there is lots of alignment across our districts.
The challenge comes like with their the building, I can't think the name of the class where they actually build a house. You know,
Yeah.
so, I mean, and the automotives, you know, all those hands-on classes, so it's kind of a work in progress, but they're planning kind of a hybrid model similar to ours. Yeah. Other comments or questions?
I think the roadmap is really well done. I think you hit it on the head. You know, you're gonna get into the school and some things are gonna work well and some things are not gonna work
Yeah.
as well as you thought they would, and you're gonna have to adjust on the fly. So I think it's, you know, it's gonna evolve as time goes on, but,
Yeah.
you know, spent quite a bit of time with it and it's comprehensive, so nice job.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's not only comprehensive, but I think that it's built around flexibility, which
Yeah.
is gonna be important.
Yeah.
And you can also tell that there's been a lot of thought that's been provided, and so that's very appreciative. So, thank you.
Yeah, the team has been just incredible, and it's interesting, you know, even at Health and Safety, Sandy and I had that meeting on Friday. I don't remember who said it, but they're like, gosh, I think I've looked at this 1,000 times, but I just noticed that we might need more clarity for this component. And honestly, the same thing happened to me. I was looking at it last night, and at 10:30, I was like, oh my goodness, we need more clarity around this. So, I mean, it is evolving, and we just want to make sure that it's a useful resource, you know, for everybody, but the team effort's been incredible.
Well, similar to our academic roadmap that we laid out, I think this is very clearly laid out and will be a really useful tool for our families when they have questions to go to it. It's very well organized. So kudos to the whole team and Kat and you.
Thanks.
So busing wise, how did we flush out there with the numbers of parents driving versus?
Yeah, so I actually haven't talked to Eric since Friday morning. I ran over to the elementary, and he was over meeting with Melissa, my sister-in-law's Alyssa. And, you know, at this point, I think we are doing well. He was picking up the cards, getting ready for communications. I am unaware of any challenges at this point. So that's a positive, and that, you know, even with budgetary, you know, components, I'm aware of no challenges. Amy and I just talked about that today.
Great.
So,
And working with Lisa Brodsky at the county health, whatever her title is, how do they handle false positives? Do they take those numbers out of the statistics?
so I haven't asked that question. I am hopeful that that is what they would do based on just what they've communicated their approach has been with inaccurate data. And they truly are going through case by case with that. So I'm hopeful that that's the case, but I can reach out and ask that and report back to the board.
Other comments or questions from anybody? Connie?
So something that's in the back of my mind. So 30's that kind of magic number. So we're 2 weeks behind with our numbers. and we get to 30,
Yep.
or not get to 30, do we decide today what we're doing?
Sure.
Do we decide in 2 weeks? What?
So the answer is it depends. We have had pretty lengthy conversations about this with Lisa and with the area superintendents as recently as last Friday. And I would say across all districts, no one is willing to say that day we're going to do that because there are a lot of considerations. One, you can't just turn on a dime. You can't just, even though it happened like that in March, it's not going to look like that as far as we know it. My understanding is the governor has allowed for 5 days of transition and planning in that. One of the conversations that Lisa asked us all to consider and think of was as we are inching up, if we're in that 29 mark and we're seeing that trend ticking upward consistently, some districts may want to just make the decision before you hit 30. And some will consider that, but it would be a district situation. One of the other conversations was, would we want to treat that or address that as a region in the same way? And yes, for a lot of reasons, great. But truthfully, it's a really personal decision per community, and each school district is so different and has so many considerations, facilities, staffing, all of those things that it just doesn't make sense to do that. But I will say, should our numbers continue to climb and we're inching around that, probably as a board, we would start having that conversation about how do you want us to move forward. If a school district is going to make a shift-in model, you're required within 24 hours to report that to the department and have a regional support team conversation. So all of those things would have to happen and be in place. One of the great parts about that Friday meeting is that we get that conversation and that personal, conversation with county health. And then in the afternoon, we have our incident response team meeting here, which is our leadership. And should our data get significant, we would pull those teacher reps in as well to have that conversation and begin some potential planning. So if we were in that position, I'd be reaching out to you as a board, and I'd be saying, listen, our data is looking troubling, and I think we need to go in this direction. So it wouldn't be it's just going to happen today thing.
Well, and I understand the sensitivity of the zip code data, but for me personally, if we're at 31 or 32 in Scott County and we're in a situation where we're at 9 or 10 in Jordan,
Right.
I think
Right.
there has to be a conversation there. Right?
And exactly, and that's truly, you said it better, but that's truly what I meant, that there are so many unique things that happen within a community. And again, our zip code data is significantly lower than that, or at least it was on Friday. We just have to stay really good at our mitigation practices here in Jordan to keep that number where it is so we can stay in school.
And I would guess that the reverse is true if our numbers get up there and we are forced to make a change, and then the numbers drop significantly, it would be the same process
Same
in
exact.
reverse.
Exactly.
I have a question. This is Sandy. Does the board need to officially approve that, or do we? I mean, because we only meet twice a month, so would we have to have a special meeting to do that, or is it just that you would just let us know?
Yep, so in the resolution, you provided authority to the superintendent to make those shifts, but of course you would be in the know and have those conversations with that.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
No, super great question.
Other comments or questions? Thank you.
Yeah,
very
thank
much.
you.
Great job. Okay. So we will move on. That was the only item we had on workshop. So we will
Yes.
move on to our August 24th special meeting, which was scheduled to start at 7 o'clock, and it is 7 o'clock. So we'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Deb Pauley,
Here.
Tom Vogel,
Tom's absent.
Sandy Burke,
Here.
Connie Hennin,
Here.
Lauren Pedersen,
Here.
Rob Langheim,
Here.
Ryan Dainert.
Here.
Okay, consideration of agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as published.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, Lauren, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ryan. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Deb Pauley,
Yes.
Sandy Burke,
Yes.
Connie Hennin,
Yes.
Lauren Pedersen,
Yes.
Rob Langheim,
Yes.
Ryan Dainert.
Yes.
Motion carries. Consent agenda items, we have the snowplow contract, the revised district calendar, the leave of absence request for Heather Tesson, a resignation for Sherry Schmidt, and a resignation for Ariana Kraus. Did anybody want to have any discussion about any of those things? I should have asked if you wanted to pull it from consent. Okay, we're all good with that? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
So moved.
We have a motion by Ryan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Rob. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Deb Pauley,
Yes.
Sandy Burke,
Yes.
Connie Hennin,
Yes.
Lauren Pedersen,
Yes.
Rob Langheim,
Yes.
Ryan Dainert.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, number 6, action item, review and act on the needlepoint bipolar ionization bids.
So tonight, Tim Bezick will be here, and he will be sharing a presentation on the needlepoint bipolar ionization, which is a process that's used in heating and cooling systems to provide cleaner breathing air in our facilities.
Yep, so I got 2 bids. One was from Northern Air. They do a lot of our control systems for our HVAC system. So they bid it out. They bid GPS is the brand of needlepoint ionization. And then I also got a bid from Owens Company, and I had them bid the GPS system also, because that way we're comparing the exact same product from the 2 vendors. NAC was our lowest bid. I think some of the reason for that is it just becomes easier for them to put it on, because they do have to wire it into our systems. So they're used to that. They're working with our VFDs. So that's really my recommendation, would be to approve that. I've talked to NAC. I mean, I will text them tonight if you give the approval to make sure that they get the order in right away. It's about 3 to 5 weeks it would be installed for sure. So if anybody's got any questions, I know I had sent you guys some videos on it, so hopefully you had a chance to look at it.
I have a couple. One question is, wasn't it Northern Air that we always struggled with because they were proprietary? So
No, that was Train.
Oh, okay.
So
you're
Train
not,
was a proprietary system.
okay.
Northern Air, so we use Allerton controls. There's multiple vendors that can manage the Allerton controls. Northern Air is just the one that we have doing it right
Okay,
now.
okay, so they're not proprietary then?
No.
Good. Questions for Tim? So, this is a lot of money.
Yep.
So you're confident that this really does work, that it really,
I think so. I went up to Belle Plaine, had a vendor out on Friday, and they did a demonstration of it. And I believe it works. I mean, a lot of districts are going to it. A lot of independents are already doing it. I mean, 3 weeks ago, it was 2 weeks out. You could buy the modules, get them installed. We're up to 3 to 3.5 weeks now to get them, mainly because of the demand. Everybody is looking at doing it. And like I said, it's more than just the COVID thing has brought it to the forefront. But it's something that I believe is gonna make our air better. It'll just be a better thing all the way around. I think it'll reduce absentees in the future, so I think it's the right.
I did a bit of research on it. It's not a new technology, really.
No, it's just coming to the forefront.
Yeah, I mean, it's in airports, LAX, LaGuardia, San Francisco, and then I also saw Johns Hopkins, Children's Hospital, Boston. So
I mean,
I was
they,
unfamiliar
they
with it, but
compare it
it's-
to UV light. UV light though there's just a lot of maintenance to UV light, and it's just like a light bulb. When you put it in, it's working at 100%, but as light bulbs stay in, they work less. This is something that when you put it in, it's working, and it's working until the end, and they make a tool so you can make sure that the ions are present. So we will purchase that at some point. It's not a very expensive tool, but and they do have lights on them, so like when we change filters once a year, we'll be able to make sure that they're working and check ion levels in spaces. I do think it's a really good system.
Good.
So according to Business Insider, it was first installed in the US in the 1970s to control pathogens in food manufacturing. So,
Well, that too should be really comforting for our families, knowing that we're,
Yeah.
you know, installing that.
I think it's just the right thing to do.
So basically, the maintenance on it, it sounds like is the once-a-year filter change.
Yeah, it's not there's really not much maintenance on them. There's self-cleaning, so there's little nozzles that spray and they have brushes. So every so often, these brushes rotate to clean the nozzles. Other than that, you just pretty much put it in and it should work.
Great. Good. Other questions for Tim?
Tim, can you remind us again, just knowing with some of the budgetary pressures that the schools had over the last year, where these dollars would come from versus some of the other dollars, just to help provide a little bit more of that clarity?
Yep.
As of right now, we're gonna take it out of LTFM. And we had not spent on our LTFM this year
Intentionally.
intentionally,
Yeah.
just for unseen things, and, you know, so it'll come out of LTFM,
And that
And
still
dollars are
wouldn't-
available.
They
dollars are available.
They're available, and it still wouldn't spend down our entire LTFM reserve.
And I think over time, what they're saying is that this is also a cost savings over time, because we can open outside air dampers to the best of our ability, but when it's 10 below zero, the more we open outside air dampers, the higher our electricity bills go, or the buildings won't be warm. It helps with that, because it creates better air. They're saying you can back those down just a little bit.
so is there opportunity for potential reimbursement through any kind of COVID preparedness dollars if it's an does the LTFM
So-
expenditure impact that at all?
So it was intentional to utilize LTFM. We likely will receive around $665,000 in COVID funds, relief funds. Many of those have very specific things you can utilize that for, and very intentional deadlines by which that all needs to be spent. For the September board meeting, Amy and I have already started working on a presentation for you as board members, so you can see the grants, the GEARS money, the ESSER money, the CARES money, the Scott County money, and you can see what we've earmarked for that. We will have a number of expenses that, you know, we are providing for the additional masks, the additional shields, the PPE equipment for our nursing staff, signage, the 6-foot social distancing components, any additional teaching salary costs that we'll have for virtual academy overages. The money goes really fast. Technology, all of those components. So we will itemize all of that for you as board members, and so you and the public can see what dollars are coming in and how that will be spent.
Great. Any other questions?
But at the same time, we're still keeping up with all the rest of our bills and keeping up with our maintenance in our buildings and our
Yes,
grounds and
of course.
everything. And
Yep.
so that our taxpayers can know that
Yes.
we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul in
Yep.
anything.
Not at all. When Tim and Amy presented in August
Yep.
or late July, it might have been late
Late
July.
I think.
They had presented their LTFM plan to the board, and intentionally, we knew going into this school year, there may be some unexpected costs. They had I thought, a very well laid out plan to address over the next 10 years, you know, all of the things that we need to within our buildings. We just were intentional with about $300,000 of that money, because we just didn't know exactly how the fall would play out.
Great. I think it's a win-win, especially
I
if
think
we
it
have
is, too.
less glue and less everything in the building. That's really good.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve it so that Tim can get the order in.
This is Sandy, so moved.
Sandy moves, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Ryan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Deb Holly,
Yes.
Sandy Burke,
Yes.
Connie Hennon,
Yes.
Lauren Pedersen,
Yes.
Rob Langheim,
Yes.
Ryan Dainert.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim, for all your work on that. Okay, Lauren,
Move to adjourn.
we are adjourned.
Woohoo, I got to be Tom.
How about that? 41 minutes, you guys.
Wow, you guys are efficient.